In a world with entirely too many shows about cars, this is another pointless automotive podcast.
Hello, friends. There's three of
Hello.
us here today on
Ooh.
another pointless automotive podcast. There's me, Frank. You're used to me. You're also used to this unusually dapper-looking gentleman. That's Chadwick over there. He's got a button up on. His hair's looking sharp. He's got a Miller Lite. Everything is good.
As per usual.
Per usual. Not really. Well, yeah, with the Miller Lite, yes. The rest of it, not as much.
Yeah.
And then we've got a third face. That is my friend. That is your friend. That is Kennan Rolsen. How the heck are you, Kennan?
Great, Frank. How are you, sir?
Oh boy, I'm peachy. I've got my sparkling water in a can.
Love that.
I've got some smiling faces here. If you're not watching along at home and you're only listening, not shame on you because thanks for listening. But we do the video thing, so you can see these smiling faces and judge them aggressively over on the YouTubes. So do that. And for those who don't know, this third face, our guest Kennan, he is of Cars and Bids fame, where he is the head editor. And you might have also seen his smiling face making some content with a guy named Doug Demuro, doing some YouTube stuff with him. I'm sure he does other stuff. You know, maybe he enjoys Hot Pockets. I don't know. Kennan,
Cookies.
welcome.
Hey, thank you so much. Thank you for having me. This is a true thrill. I'm very happy to be on. I'm the second Cars and Bids person who's been on other than yourself, right, Frank? You had Andrew.
It
Cotton,
is. Yeah. We had our pal Andrew, who was on. Boy, that was a while ago. I feel like time is like compressed, and it's like I'm losing track of it. But that was a little bit ago. And so you are the head editor, right, over at Cars and Bids. So what does that entail? Does that just mean like you get to like hunt for typos before stuff goes live? Like fill me in.
A bit, yeah. So I am the managing editor of Cars and Bids. So I run the entire writing team that puts all the listings together that you see on Cars and Bids. So the teams that will, once you're assigned, once your listing has been processed, we've sort of gotten the foundation of it, you're assigned to a writer. They put everything together. They, take all the ingredients and make it into the Cars and Bids souffle. Then it goes to an editor who takes a look over everything, just kind of checks the process. And then it still, believe it or not, goes off to Doug for a final look. He still looks at every single listing. And my job is to run the team that facilitates all of that stuff. And so, yes, there is some checking of dotting of I's and crossing of T's that's required. But it's also a lot of managing that whole team and, hiring people, training them. And keeping that team together. There are about 20 of us, I think now, 22, something to that effect. So yeah, it continues to grow, and I'm really proud of all the work that we've done. We've almost celebrated 3 years now, and I just can't believe how big it's gotten.
There you go. Yeah, like who'd have thought that like you guys launched something into the teeth of COVID, and like now it's like not only still standing, but you're like it's growing and it's become a thing. And so yeah, hat tip there.
Thank you.
And then you did mention Senor Demuro there, Doug.
Yes.
What you've been doing some video content with him now, yeah? What happened there? How'd you get roped into that nonsense?
Yes, I have been. I've been fortunate enough to be Doug's friend for some time, so I've gotten used to all of his many quirks and features.
Sure.
And he's boom, had to slide that one in there. But we've always had like a great rapport since in the whole time I've known him, and he wanted to try out some new things on his YouTube channel. It's been Doug Demuro standing in a lot of parking lots by himself with 2 t-shirts and a camera for a long time, and he wanted to, he feels he's in a position where he wants to try some new things, so he wanted to have on a personality for some banter, and we banter a lot, he and I, back and forth. So in our own personal lives, so he wanted to have me on. We started just with filming some garage videos of he and I just kind of talking back and forth. And then he wanted to have me in front of the camera, in front of the main audience, doing split reviews of these cars, which is so surreal to me because I've watched him for many, many years, since the 360 days, as a lot of people have. And it was just it's a wild experience to be able to do that. It's also nerve-wracking because there are 4.5 million subscribers. It's a lot of people.
We have only like just about half that of people that listen to us.
Right.
Yeah,
exactly.
very similar.
Yeah. Right.
Right.
But an audience is an audience, and everybody hears stuff, and you never know where it's going to go. So admittedly, this was a lot of pressure, and I certainly felt that. But Doug, like getting a chance to work with someone who is, at that level is such a thrill. And he was it was a fascinating experience working with him. He has a very specific way that he does things,
Sure.
and it works for him. And he, you'd be saying something, he'll stop you halfway, and he'll go, no, go start over again. You got to phrase it like this, or no, you place the emphasis in the wrong place. You got to do it like this. And so that was a lot of the advice I was given. It's a lot to learn very quickly, but it was like a real privilege to get to work with him, especially knowing him personally and being good friends.
Sure.
And then seeing how he actually does this, especially like being a fan, I had to pinch myself. It was really cool. He warms up for this, and like vocally like warms up, and he just is such a pro. He's such a pro.
New York.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. But he would go like this, this, and it's like he gets like, and then he winds up, and then there it is. But he can just go. He's so good at that. He's just such a talented guy, and just knows where he's going with stuff, and just very impressive.
Very cool. Well,
Yeah.
I ideally we spend a lot of time here talking car stuff, so that's kind of what we want to
Yeah.
get into is car stuff. But I guess it's like a segue. If you got to handpick something to review in the pantheon of automobiles, what are you going with, my guy? Like what are you
That's tough.
picking to do a review with, either solo or with Doug or whoever, but spend the time and just be around and poke through and discover said quirks and potential features?
Well, so I actually used to do some videos long before I met Doug. I used to work in an exotic car dealership in Cleveland,
Sure.
Ohio, and I did some videos there. One car I did a video on was a Morgan Aero 8 Super Sport, and I adored that car. That car was
cool.
so cool. I would love to do a video on that, and that's a great car to do with him too, because it just has so much quirky. There's so many quirks to that car, as
Just the
one would
headlights alone,
expect. Oh, just those headlights alone. But it was
seriously though, talk about a small world. I mean, you used to work at an exotic delership. Frank used to be an exotic dancer.
This is true.
It's great, full circle.
And you know what? Sometimes, depending if the pay is right, I occasionally come out of retirement. Price is right. Everyone's got their price. Okay?
Hey, everyone's got a number, baby.
That's right.
But yeah, that's so fun. We used to refer to our dealership there as the exotic superstore. And of course, that had like two connotations. So in the early days, you'd get calls like from all over about other stuff, and then they had to change it to like sports car, more focused on that. But yeah.
Yes.
I was 50% of those calls. I'm sorry. Apologies.
You're just like calling. Yeah. For some reason, like, the best accessories come from these shops in the Midwest, and you're just calling to Cleveland.
Yeah.
The factory of sadness, Cleveland, Ohio.
Yes. Well, hey, Cleveland is most of the time, it's the color of my shirt. It's usually very gray. But I love being from Cleveland. I still like going back and still like visiting it. Although admittedly, I did move to San Diego for the sunshine.
A little different. Yeah, you move away from the mistake on the lake to
mistake on the lake. That's right.
That's it. Well, very cool. So is that the answer? The Morgan Aero?
That's one of my. I just love that car. I would love to do another video on it, and it drove tremendously well. Like that car, like that's the surprise I think with that one is it looks insane and kind of stupid and weird, but man, it's really cool. It's better put together than I had thought, and it drives great. And the sound of that engine, like that makes that. I mean, it's just a BMW engine, but like it really sounds.
It's the 4.4.
I believe that's right, and it's NA. And the side pipes come out right next to you, and it's just fabulous. Really cool car. I would love to do that again. Love those things. Admittedly, one I'd really love to do this is again like ballpark. The Stratosphere stuff is like love to do an Enzo. Doug didn't get to drive it in the review that he did,
Sure.
And I think like being there to share that with him would be really cool. When I was at Marshall Goldman, the exotic car dealership I worked for, it was the only of the Ferrari supercars I didn't get to interact with, and I really, really would love to.
Just don't pull an Eddie Griffith and wreck one into a K-rail on a press event.
Great.
Yeah. I remember that so well. Watching that grainy YouTube video of that happening was like broke the internet.
Then afterwards, he just like looks at the cameras like, "What can I say? Brother can't drive."
Brother can't drive. Man. That's right. Yeah, very famous line. Yeah, it's exactly.
Yes.
But that one would be up there. And if I had to pick a third, I would actually love to do. I mean, obviously, we only do cars from like 1981 forward, so I can't go before those. There are some cars I would love to do.
Sure.
But I think like of all the weird cars, I would love. I love weird slow stuff too. So like for me,
Yeah. Hell yeah.
like a Citroen 2CV could be on that list. But I think that like I actually think like of all the cool weird stuff I really want to interact with, Renault Turbo 5 to me I think is one of
Yeah.
the coolest. I'm just so curious how that thing drives. I just they just look
I've heard they're
awesome.
kind of terrible to drive,
I'm
like
sure,
out of that
but
era, like because you had that, and then you had like the Delta Integrale, and like everyone I've
oh,
talked to that's driven a Delta, like they actually drive really well. But the
yeah.
Renault Turbo 5 is just like an absolute handful nightmare, which kind of makes it dope. Like that kind of makes it cool.
Totally. I think there's a definite appeal to that. And just purely aesthetically. Like that is
Sure.
just an insane shape for a car to be.
Hmm.
And I'm just really into that. So well, those if I had to pick three, I think those would be my dream three.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Yeah, I always wanted Doug to do like a Ford GT, the Ford GT90 prototype. Like if you
Oh
found a way to
yeah.
like get a hand on that, or like I don't know, the Juke R, like Nissan
Juke
Juke
car.
R.
Oh, totally. Yep. Yeah, we recently did a garage video where we sort of talked about those cars, like our
Oh,
the
interesting.
cars we dream of, and Juke R was one of his. Metal Design Columbus. It's another one.
Absolute
And
Frankenstein.
oh my God, that car. Yeah, that vehicle is deeply heinous to look at, but just so insanely cool. But yeah, cars like that. The top of my list for that was without question. Like again, like it doesn't exist, so it's like it exists, but like I'll never get to review it. I wouldn't imagine. Would be the Volkswagen Golf GTI, the one they put the W12 and the Bentley W12, and I think that car is just
Yeah,
I love that car so much. It's just an insane concept for a car. And,
absolutely.
but again, similar thing to the Turbo 5. Big
Yep.
engine, in the back, really
Or like
weird.
a Clio V6 kind of deal.
Or Clio V6, and exactly, that's exactly right.
There we go.
Mhm.
Excellent. Well, what about what do you have now? I assume you have vehicles.
I do have vehicles. So
Oh
I
boy.
have two currently. So I have a 2002 E39 M5,
Okay.
which I adore. That is my favorite. It's truly my favorite car ever made. I will go on record saying that I just think it, for me personally, it
Hmm.
delivers everything I've ever wanted a car to deliver. It is fast. It is like understated. It handles nicely. It's fun to drive since it's a manual. That engine is sublime. And
Best
it can keep
M5 of all
it.
time for sure.
It's
100%.
Ooh.
totally. It's
Easily.
up there. It's
Easily.
up there. I think if the E60 had any hope of being reliable, it would edge it, but it doesn't. Like
Zero chance. Yeah.
and there are people who, and I love the E60 as well. And there are ways you can make them more reliable, but at the end of the day, they're very difficult to work on. And they are at that point where BMW was becoming so focused on technology, like
Mhm.
diagnosing issues is tough. But the E39 is just old school enough that it's just like a nice, it's such a perfect blend, and it just does everything well. And truly, I've had that car for almost 8 years. I've put like 70 or 80,000 miles on the one I have,
Nice.
Nice.
and it's we're at almost 230 now, which is crazy.
Hell yeah.
But that car, it's still like you close the doors, the bank vault, and
What
every time I
color?
get titanium silver, so it's
Okay.
silver with a black sport interior. And my license plate is TIAG M5 titanium silver, the chemical symbols for silver
There you go.
M5, which is how the nerds in the community
It's a
refer to it.
nerdiness.
Yep,
Yeah.
always. I'm a huge car nerd. But truly, every time I get in that car and drive it, or lock it and walk away from it in a parking lot, I still look back at it, and I am even more excited to drive it and experience it now than I was when I bought it 8 years ago. It's just the greatest car. I just love it, and I'd never plan on selling it. So that's one car. And the other car that I'll gush over. So yeah, I also have a 1995 Ferrari F355 Spider,
Yeah.
which it was my childhood dream car. And that's kind of, I can transition kind of from there into like the genesis of how I got into cars, because it's kind of a cool
Sure.
story.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Jump in.
Sure. So in 2005, my neighbor, again, I'm from Cleveland, Ohio. I'm from a town that's like just outside of Cleveland, halfway between Cleveland and Akron, called Hudson. And my neighbor at the time lived about half a mile away. He had a son that's about my age. We were best friends then. We're still best friends now. And his dad had just bought his dream car, which was a 1998 355 F1 Spider. It was '05. F1 was the hot thing. This was the first
Right.
car with it.
Oh
So
my
like
God.
oh man, everybody just wanted
It's got the
F1.
race car transmission in it.
It's faster than
Exactly.
you can shift. Just kidding.
What?
But
Yeah.
it's like Michael Schumacher's car. It's like, yeah, it was that whole thing. And so he bought this car, and I didn't know anything about cars. I knew a Ferrari was a car. I thought it was like a minivan. I truly had no idea. I had no idea what
They
it was.
would make a dope minivan, though.
They would. Even
They
the
kind of just
SDS
did, right? The
Yeah, we'll
Kurosangwe?
see. I'm very curious to see what that.
Ouch.
Yeah, exactly. Kind of though. But anyway, so he brought the car over, and and I remember it was a Sunday in May of 2005, and he pulled into the bottom of the driveway, and we were looking at the car, and it was cool, whatever. And he was like, "Do you want to go for a ride?" And I was like, "Sure." And I remember going to get in the car and not being able to figure out how the door handles, like how to open the door, because they're inside the air intake. You have to reach into the intake. Very cool. But I had no idea. So but it's luckily it's small enough. He reached over, popped open the door, and I got in. And we just kind of backed out of the driveway, cruised up to the top of the street. And when we got to the main road, he nailed it. And I just remember the sound, and I remember the smell, and just like the sensation of speed.
Mm-hmm.
And being this 10-year-old kid from Ohio, that was the most exotic thing I had ever experienced in my entire life. It would just it blew me away. I just was like, just the rush of adrenaline was insane. And I was like, do it again. And I just wanted to hear that sound. And it was the coolest thing to me. And when we came back from that ride, it sounds very cliche, but I swear to God, it's true. I said to my parents, I'm like, Ferrari, I'm going to have to remember that name. And then I went and Googled it, and that was that in my life was one of the singular, I'd say it's the singular most pivotal moment of my life. My life was different after I rode in that car, because now I was just focused on cars, and I've been obsessed ever since. Growing up, from that moment forward, everybody knew me. Everybody knew Kennan loved Ferraris. I have a collection of 1/18 scale Ferraris that I started not long after that. And it grew to the point where I brought one every Ferrari Friday. I would wear my Ferrari shirt and bring a 1/18 scale model and put it on my desk at school. And people would ask me about it, and I would tell them, all the specifications about, whatever the car was. And you go over the history of it, whatever. And it was just like a thing. And people were into it. They just knew it was going to happen. And that was my thing that I was known for. And fast forward many years, I set a goal then as I started to, get a little older. I'm like, okay, I actually want to own this thing. And my goal is to own it, before I got too old, because Enzo Ferrari once said, I make cars for young men, yet only old men can afford them. And I chased it. I chased that dream really hard until late last year, in November. I came across one and I bought it and made it happen. And that's the car that I have now, which is my nice.
And so what's the spec on this one? Is it also an F1? What's the color? What are you working with, my guy?
So no, not quite. I'm a manual transmission guy. Every car I've ever owned up to this point has been a manual.
Good man.
I'm very proud of that. And yeah, so mine is like I said, a 95. So they were only manuals in 1995 from until 1998 when they introduced the F1 transmission. But mine is a Spider. Just like the one I rode in. I wanted to be very close to that sound, and I live in Southern California, so I wanted to be convertible. And mine's kind of an unusual red. It's Rosso Barchetta, which is a little bit of a darker red, not so red, but it's still a red Ferrari with a beige interior. And it also has the Challenge grille, which everybody really likes.
Oh yeah,
nice. It's a very, very good looking car. I love that color. It changes a lot in different light settings. It's really pretty.
Fantastic. So do you weep every time you see the end of the Korn Got the Life music video where they wreck the 355?
Yes, that and The Rock when it gets crushed.
Exactly.
Yes.
I'm just bothering your Humvee. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Dude, you just wrecked your Ferrari. Not mine. Yeah, exactly. Yes, those do make me cry. But admittedly, there's one more part to the 355 story.
There always is.
What makes me cry is the maintenance on that car.
Don't say.
Yes, I don't. I know. We'll talk about the most obvious thing anybody's ever said about of any Ferrari, but especially that one. But the issue is mine was serviced extensively when I bought it. It had the major service done, which entails replacing not only the cam belts, which you have to take the engine out of the car famously to do, but it had, everything done. The valve guides, which are a known issue in that car, those have been replaced. The headers, which crack, those have been replaced. Everything had been done, and I had documentation for all of it. The guy who before me did an $18,000 service in July of last year, which is just par for the course with that car. So I had a PPI done at a very reputable Ferrari service place where I not far from where I bought the car. I bought it out of state in Texas, and they took a look at it, and it passed muster, and compression test was good. All that's the stuff you do for a 355.
Yes.
And then it got here. and
Immediately broken.
it was ticking like crazy. I thought it was left to tick at first because maybe it hadn't been driven in a while. I knew it hadn't been driven in a while. And then that turned out to be the headers did end up cracking, even though they had been replaced. So so that was frustrating. Although that's not as bad to fix as people had said, but still a frustration nonetheless. Then it had voltage issues where you would turn it on, turn the lights on, they would pulsate like this.
Like a voltage regulator issue.
Voltage, exactly right.
Yeah.
Yes, on the Denso unit that it shares with the Jeep Grand Cherokee of the same era, that is what was not working well. So that needed to be addressed. But it had lots of issues. The most annoying was there was an exhaust leak. When the service had been performed, the exhaust had not been reinstalled correctly, and so the heat was pouring out onto one of the CV axles. And one day when I went to drive it, I had just gotten off the highway with one of my friends. We were going to meet Doug for a drive, and I had turned, and there was a huge plume of smoke came out of the back of the car. And in a car that's known for catching on fire, my friend lost. He was very scared, so he flew up next to me and said, "Turn it off, it's smoking." Turned out the CV axle ruptured. It was actually steam, the grease. The moisture from the grease was just evaporating. That's what it was. But even so, that was a rude awakening to being like, this car is just, and it has been, admittedly, I have now gone through and fixed all of these things to a huge expense, but that's not the point. The point now is that even though it's fixed and everything is working properly, I'm just so afraid.
Fearful.
Yeah. And it genuinely, as great as it looks and as wonderful as it sounds, and shifting your own gears is not to be underrated in that car. It is so good. It's not what I was expecting it to be. Like, I didn't realize how much it was going to weigh on me, and it really does. That and there are parts of the car I don't like. The steering is awful in that car. It was early Ferrari power steering. So a huge steering wheel, you turn it and you really have to be on it to turn to turn the steering wheel to get it to dive into corners. And it being mid-engine, if it snaps, I truly don't believe you'd be able to turn the wheel fast enough to catch it. So it's like you just have to really
As be Jonathan Davis from Korn found out.
Yeah. Yes. Right. Exactly. So, and ultimately it's a car from the 90s. So it's like it rides pretty soft, which is not a complaint, but it rolls a lot into corners and things. And it just, ultimately, as I've owned it for a while now, I find myself reaching for the M5 keys more than the 355. My best drives in the 355, or the best I feel in that car is when I get it back to the house, turn it off, and it survived to drive without something going wrong. And that's when okay, it's time. But I got to experience it. I know what it's like now to meet my hero and live with it a little bit. And so I don't regret the experience at all. But, now I think I'm ready to move it on and find the next car that I want after that, the next experience I want to have. But still, when it's right and the sun's out and you just clacking away and the engine's just humming away, and you've got Donna Summer or whoever on the radio.
Definitely Donna Summer. Yeah, absolutely.
Just chilling. It's the best.
Or tattoo,
Exactly. Or Kavinsky, honestly, too. Just so right in that car. It's hard to beat. I think dollar for dollar it delivers the Ferrari experience better than any other car, than any other model they've ever made. It just is exotic and special and really cool. But my God, it also delivers the Ferrari experience when it comes to me.
Absolutely.
So that's my 355 summary in a nutshell.
Nice.
So then, okay, so let's say you snap your fingers and now it's sold, and now you have an influx of cash. What's the next filly you got your eye on? What are you?
It's tough. It's tough. So it's hard to stray away from my BMW roots. I've owned many of them. Part of me very much wants a Z4M Roadster. I feel that car is tremendously and criminally underrated for what it delivers.
Sure.
That the S54 engine is just so good. And yes, it does have some issues. But unlike
glutton for punishment, I see.
Oh, I'm a masochist for sure. I'm an automotive masochist, no question. But I've always wanted that engine in my life. I love the E46 M3, but it's a little too similar to the E39 M5, and I don't want a convertible one. But the M Roadster, the Z4 M Roadster is designed to be a convertible, and so it behaves correctly as a sports car. It's very stiff too. The chassis is really stiff. So I really, that car I've got my eye on. But the cars I really want, I'm thinking, as a lot of Ferrari owners do when they have their first one, then they buy a Porsche. So I have some Porsches on the list. Definitely been thinking 996 turbo. I'd love a 997, but I think they're just a little bit too expensive for me to stretch to right now. but but yeah, 996 turbo, Metzger flat six, just, and I personally like the way that those cars look. That's very high on the list too, and just pretty solid, reliable, usable.
Right. Yeah, don't buy an M96 powered 996.
Yeah.
It sounds like your luck will run out because that's what's happening with your current ride.
Yeah,
But,
I think that's exactly right. But I still love those cars too and appreciate those. But that's on the list. The car I lust after the most that I just can't justify the depreciation for right now, but I will have one, is a CT5V Blackwing. I just think those cars are so cool, and so like I've said it before and I'll say it many times. It's like driving that car is like taking a bite out of a big juicy burger. It's just like it just satisfies, and like as an American who likes V8s, like it's so good. Everything about that car is excellent. And it's even weird to the point where it's just understated and it says Blackwing in one spot on the seat or whatever. I just think it's so cool. And I would love one of those cars, but inevitably they will depreciate compared to where they are now. But I think that with a manual, very, very, very special car. So that's kind of those are kind of like, that's the short list of cars I'm thinking about. There's some like Boxer Spiders on that list too. 981 or 987, honestly, either one. Those are kind of on the list. But yeah, those are like the cars. So yeah, more reliable, sedate things compared to what I'm coming from.
there you go. I mean, Chadwick and I have been talking about keeping our eyes out for anything GM Quad 4 powered, a Quad 442 or something like that. So we tend to swim in the lower, the shallow end of the swimming pool. But I really like all of those cars. I still think like a 996 GT2, if you can find one and swing it,
yeah.
I mean, it's some coin, but like those are pretty underrated.
They are. They definitely appreciated more in recent years, but there's another car. Like Doug loves that car too. He's obsessed with cars that actively want to kill you. Like Carrera GT, known for that. Very famously, Ford GT also can be kind of a handful. His Viper was like that. He likes the 996 GT2, COK Black Series. I mean, all of those cars like are famously like kind of spiky, and and you got to know what you're doing. You got to be awake. But yeah, I do love the 996 GT2, especially in yellow. Like for me, I just think that car just looks just right.
I don't know if I could own a yellow car. Chadwick, you ever own a yellow car?
That's a good question. I don't think I have.
I haven't either.
Well,
I don't think I can. That's it. We're gonna get a yellow Oldsmobile Quad 442. We're doing it. We'll do it live. And a Chiba SVX in yellow. Yeah, there we go.
Oh yeah, that would be great. Imagine.
No, that would be solid. Yeah, I don't know. I feel it's funny though, like and you said it, like doing the whole like the Ferrari thing to something that's a little bit more or significantly more reliable in the form of like a 996 turbo or something like that. Yeah, it's interesting. But then I wonder if the pendulum will swing the other way. Like you get yourself a nice reliable 996 turbo and you're like, it doesn't try and murder me, and like it always kind of works. And like it's too like I think Chadwick and I have discussed this before. Like we find a way to like really enjoy like deeply flawed cars. And so like the 355 is great in a lot of ways, but it's also deeply flawed in a lot of ways. And like I wonder if like you'll have to like the pendulum will swing the other way and you're like, oh boy, now we need to go get something else like hyper fragile.
Maybe
after that experience, I don't know.
Maybe, I'm not sure. I think I might have PTSD from this one for a while. We'll see. I'm not done with Ferrari as a brand. Like I really love the cars that they make. And admittedly, like I'd love to own a V12 Ferrari at some point, a 550, 575, or a 612. I actually really love those cars. I know not everybody likes the 612, but I just think they're elegant, and I like the best part about the car, in my opinion, truly, is like getting to share it with other people who've never been in a Ferrari before. Like when I take passengers to ride in that car, just like I did when I was a kid, that experience is so good, and it lives up to what a Ferrari is supposed to be. It's just exotic and really cool. Not like your exotic dancing. It's not as exotic as that. But it is very exotic.
Nobody would qualify that as cool. Well, Chadwick has. I mean, but he's
he's a fan, man. And you're only fans. He is the one.
Many a dollar spent.
Many a dollar spent. That's right.
Many a $2 bill.
So the beauty of like the 612 is you can then it's a very fast car, but you can legitimately share that experience with 3 other people, and I think that's so unique and weird and cool. And I love those cars. So those are like, that's kind of on my short list of Ferrari. If I think I need like a cool washcloth on the brow for a while and to calm down after the
Sure.
355. But I could see getting a more reliable Ferrari again later on, because they're just special cars. They're really cool.
Do people ever like Honda K-swap 355s or something
Oh,
where
yeah.
it's like complete sacrilege, but like you can drive the damn thing?
Yes, there has been a case swap. There is one that's out there. It's a case swap 355, which is really cool. One of my friends believes that like it's a prime car to be EV swapped, because you get the looks and everything and the coolness. But I'm like, but the sound, like the
Yeah.
sound is such an important part of that car. All Ferraris, in my opinion, have to do two things: they look good, sound good. The fact they drive well is kind of a nice byproduct, but it's all about the engine. The
Actually
engine's what's
working,
important.
side
Yeah,
piece.
well,
Yeah.
Hey, that's how they feel about it in Italy now. They're still just like, whatever. But I think that like, I think there are people who have put interesting engines in these cars. There's some with LSs out there, and these cars got really cheap too for a really long time, and the maintenance was so expensive. People were just like
Sure.
messing around with them. So they're out there. What an interesting car that would be to drive.
Yeah. 2JZ swap. There's got to be some goofball like three rotor swap, like some bizarro stuff out there.
That would be cool.
Quad 4 swapped.
Cool. That's right. Yeah, quad 4 swap.
Yeah,
buddy.
Exactly. As long as it's yellow, then you guys can track down one of those, add it to the garage. You're good to go.
That's it. Okay. Yeah. If one comes through with a blown motor to run on cars and bids, definitely flag Chadwick and I, and we'll get in the bidding pool on that bad boy.
I'll set aside just for you guys.
There we go. We'll put something regrettable in there. It'll be wonderful.
Known flaws section does not run.
Yeah, blown motor.
The real engine out service, the engine swap.
Yeah, the real check engine light when the engine explodes behind you. Yeah.
Yeah, then you just make like a coffee table out of like the wasted block and sell it for like 15 grand, to some hipster, and it'll be great.
Yeah, so
get your money back.
Yeah, someone who wears glasses like mine. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
that's exactly right.
That's it. Yeah, buddy.
Exactly.
Well, you know what? I was thinking about something.
Sure.
Chadwick, I know that traditionally I'd be asking you some questions and quizzing you on a game here, and I think it is actually my turn to quiz you, Chadwick. But we've got a guest, and so I'm thinking we do the quiz game. And I quiz everyone's best friend Kennan here, and then Chadwick, you want to be the lifeline? You want to?
Yeah, man. I
can.
Well,
phone a friend.
I can attempt to be. You want me to explain the rules of the game?
Yeah, you explain the rules of the game. I have 3 options here.
Oh boy, what's the spicy index of your options?
Well, that's what we have. We've got spicy, we've got medium, and we've got mild. Kennan, I'm going to leave this up to you. I have it on my phone today.
Oh, I saw it.
No. And so, Kennan, how do you feel? Do you want to go hard in the paint? Do you want to lay up, or do you want something in between? What are you thinking?
I think I want to go hard in the paint to start out. Let's just start out there, and we'll see.
Okay.
I'm not sure how this will go. Like I said, I am also truly fine learning something today.
Okay. I like that attitude.
We'll definitely see.
That's good. So Chadwick, I'm going to cue it up.
You prepare your spice rack and go ahead and empty it into this bowl of chili you're about to serve us.
Definitely pull and blow.
This is our automotive print ad quiz game show. So we're looking at a print ad from a periodical, a printed article back in the day before the internet. I guess the internet kind of was. We do go to the mid 2000s, so fair enough. It might be on the interwebs, but 80s, 90s, early 2000s our game. So keep that in mind. Frank's going to read the article, hopefully omitting some stuff that gives it away. Maybe not. Maybe we'll get a good hint every once in a while. But he's going to read through the ad, which are notoriously horrible for real details. You'll have 3 guesses in this example to guess the correct vehicle. Every time you miss, you can ask for help. I'll be a one-time use lifeline in this case. And we have 10 minutes on the clock. Once Frank finishes his beautiful
Yes. Oh, yeah. My rendition here. And just for those playing along at home, and for your knowledge there, Kennan, Chadwick doesn't know what this is. So the phone a friend, it's not like he has inside knowledge. It's like he maybe he knows, maybe he doesn't, maybe he's a complete waste of time. Probably a mix of all of it. But I'm going to.
You've been talking to my mother.
Yeah, exactly. Mom. Okay. So this is it's a 2-pager. In the background, you see pointing straight, like in the background, the text is kind of partially over it. You see like a 50% opaque, shady figure of a Formula One car like coming straight at you.
Okay.
And then planted on front of that, it has like our favorite front 3/4 shot of the vehicle in question. And then it says turbo, period. The blank formula. Blank turbo from blank. Slippery and simmering. Exciting. A heritage earned on the tracks of the world by the first turbos ever to race Grand Prix and win. Blank turbo. 5 forward speeds powered by a 1.6-liter intercooled turbo that creates 11.6 psi maximum boost. Bosch L-Jetronic fuel injection. Performance that's responsive, yet civilized enough for a highway estimate of 40 miles per gallon and an EPA estimated MPG of 26. Blank turbo. Front-wheel drive with independent front suspension. Blank's A-frame mounted trailing arm rear axle. Stabilizer bars, standard. Front and rear. Michelin TRX radials. Next page. On cast aluminum wheels. Vented front disc and rear drum brakes with power-assisted hydraulics, and Blank's balanced anti-lock system. Blank turbo. Wind smooth exterior styling with a drag coefficient of 0.35. Indoors, a cockpit with laser calibrated visibility. Bioformed seating. AM/FM stereo.
How high were these guys?
Shh, very. Air conditioning and leather-wrapped sport wheel. Blank turbo. From blank. Civilized performance at a civilized price. $11,095. That's what we're working with, guys.
Wow, that's an incredible. I mean, think now if any, you could never advertise any of that now, like technological, like you couldn't do any of that automotive. Like nobody knows. No modern consumer really knows what a rear trailing arm is. Like that's so impressive that they fit that on an ad.
And, oh yeah, like all of that.
That's amazing. That is so impressive. Now you have fractions of a second to grab people's attention. Versus
the Apple thing, like when Apple started doing like the hyper minimalist like print ad stuff, that is like taken hold and it's still like that, you know. You get like one catch line and maybe like one spec and then a dollar amount, and that's it if you're lucky.
Yeah, right. It definitely gives you the time period of the ad for sure.
Oh, yeah, it does. Well, between that and the Bosch,
L-Jetronic.
L-Jetronic gives you definite time period.
The price.
The price, all of that does help give you a time period. But what froze me is so the Formula One car. So it was a team. It was somebody who had some involvement with Formula One racing during the turbo era, which was obviously the 80s. I'm trying to, but it's a normal car that has good.
Boy, it doesn't sound normal.
Doesn't sound normal to me.
Tell you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but the fuel economy is what is throwing me. I'm trying to think of what.
One thing I will say: never listen, especially 80s, 90s eras. Just toss that out the window. Like fuel economy, it'll be some smog 7.1 compression V8, and it'll say it has like 38 miles a gallon. Like it's just throw it out the window.
The automaker could claim whatever number. It's like 60 mpgs, and then EPA testing 20. You know,
there's several asterisks next to these numbers, literally in the hat. So
right. Well, I'm trying to think back to that era. What manufacturers were making turbo engines during that time in Formula One? So obviously Honda was very famous with McLaren in the late 80s. But I don't think it's a Honda. I don't suspect it's a Honda. BMW also won Formula One World Championship with turbocharged power during that time, but it doesn't sound like a BMW. It sounds way too. I don't get the gut feeling that it's a BMW because they also have very specific language they use in their ads even back then. It doesn't feel like
front wheel drive
and front wheel drive, so it can't be a BMW. Yeah,
and turbo for that matter.
And turbo, yeah, they really weren't doing that yet.
1.6 turbo.
1.6, yeah, 1.6. It is really hard.
And don't forget, you do get 3 guesses, so you can take a wild swing in the dark.
Yeah, I'm going to have to. I hate to give so much silence. 1.6 turbo. Yeah, yeah. Thank you. I'm very stumped. This is a very hard one. Admittedly, too,
you.
because my background is in exotic cars, so it's hard.
Well, you got the right poster on the wall behind you.
Yep, yes I do. Huge huge Schumacher fan. There's you can kind of see there's a 355 there as well.
Nice.
Let's see. I don't know. I really don't know. Well, Chadwick, I hate to reach out for a lifeline so early, but I could use a second head to brainstorm this.
Snap. Well, do you want to take a guess first and then we'll use that lifeline? Or can we use a lifeline before we take a guess, Frank?
I suppose you can do it whenever, because like after a guess, here's what I would do. I would save the lifeline simply because you get a hint after a guess anyways. And so maybe the hint will lead you to a better lifeline. I don't know. Maybe not.
I'm the best lifeline, bro.
No, I know, but I'm saying like the hint goes to you too, right?
Totally
so, like,
not the best lifeline.
Both of you are getting hints when the hints come. And I got to figure out what hint
let's see. I'm trying to remember.
I have some ideas, but I don't. Not super.
I suspect the Formula One car. I'm just trying to remember who was making, because Cosworth was making Lotus engines at that time that were turbocharged. So it could be something along those lines. So I don't know if the Formula One. I don't know what Formula One car it is. So it's hard to imagine. But also, yeah, I don't know. But Renault also was. And Renault was selling stuff in the US, and I believe they were doing front wheel drive as well at that time. But I don't know. I don't remember what cars they were selling in the US at that stage.
Nobody does.
Because nobody bought them. Yeah, exactly. Like other than the Le Car, and that was just like, I mean, I don't think anybody
that
bought
would
those.
Not be spicy in the least.
And that wouldn't be spicy
Yeah.
enough. That would not be spicy enough. Man, that is really hard. I don't think Audi was doing anything at that point, and front wheel drive wasn't really the focus. I don't know. This is very difficult. I'm really sweating over here.
We're just under 5 minutes if you want to shoot something out.
Okay,
we'll go from there.
Okay, I can't remember a model. I'm going to say it's a Renault of some kind. Am I at least on the right track?
Let's do this. We'll count that as a guess.
A Renault something.
A Renault something.
Renault something.
It is a Renault something.
Aha. Okay.
So you are absolutely barking up the right tree, my friend.
It
is indeed a Renault something, and the hint I'll give you, and I don't know if this is going to help you because Renault, it's a coupe. It's a two-door. I suppose it's actually a hatch even, but it's really a coupe that's hatch-y, but it's a coupe.
Is that the Alpine by chance? Is it the Renault Alpine? I don't remember what the not A.
Let me clarify one thing. Every time during this game, these are American market vehicles only. So it had to have been sold here in the United States. So it would not be a Renault Alpine, and I should have specified that out the rip. These have to be U.S. sold in the United States.
Okay, I will count that as my second one, just as a mistake on my own.
You don't need to. I clarified there.
All right, Chadwick, I could use some. What is your Renault knowledge like from the 1980s?
It's pretty decent. So there were two big Renaults I know anyway, and I'm almost 100% sure this was the only turbo Renault we got in the States, and it has a really fun name. I might be right, but it's you could take my advice or you could leave it. I will
take it. I'm very limited with my Renault knowledge.
I believe this is also a spicy name. So my guess would be, now that we've confirmed it's a Renault, I'm going to say the Fuego came with a 1.6 turbo front wheel drive. And that's definitely, we nailed it with the F1 history there. So that would be my guess off the rip. And I was a little iffy but I think that's
But-
the second most popular Renault.
The Formula One thing, I just knew the Europeans are so proud of Formula One, and there really are only a handful of manufacturers who
Right.
do it. So that's kind of like points you in a direction. It is odd that they chose Formula One to advertise in the US because even in the 80s, like, it was not a popular sport over here. I mean,
Either
it's
was a
race cars,
Renault.
it's
Renault
sexy.
had nothing.
Yeah,
like,
Renault.
What
No
else
one
were they
cared
gonna
about
lean
Renault.
on, right?
They had to do whatever. I guess they were throwing whatever they could try at the American market to get them to bite, like just anything. And yeah, Formula One, but it works so well that the ad, clearly is one I've never seen. Although, do I get to see the ad after this?
I'll show
I'm
you.
like-
At least it's on my phone. I can just hold it up.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Chadwick, I'm going to trust you here because I truly am blind in the dark. I'm in the dark, but we'll
I
go
think
with
we
the
got it.
Fuego.
I think we got it.
Is that the guess?
We'll go with the Fuego. Is that
Turbo, the Fuego Formula.
wow?
It is the Renault. It's a 1984 Renault Fuego Turbo.
Oh, that's an awesome
Wow.
ad.
That is a really so the text follows is like the outline.
Yeah,
of
it
the
goes
shape of
around the-
F1 car.
yeah, around
How
the wing
cool
and all
is
that.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
awesome.
That is really cool.
That's a good
I
ad.
never
That's
would. I never would have gotten to that point. Yeah, that is.
I would absolutely. I don't know. I would club a baby seal for an immaculate like Renault
Heck
Fuego Turbo. Like,
heck
how
yeah.
cool would that be? Like a perfect one to show up to anything in that thing.
Well, I got to be honest with you. Like, a lot of the car shows I go to and stuff. It's like F40s and stuff like that show up, and of course they're all perfect because they all like. But if I saw a mint Fuego, like
Telling you.
I love survivor cars that you just never see in like pristine condition,
Mhm.
especially American stuff, like a pristine New Yorker. I mean, how many of those like exist
Right.
now? Like there's not that many of them.
Exactly.
Or LeBaron or something like that. Like seeing something in really pristine condition, that like when those come through Cars and Bids, or when you take pictures of them, like honestly,
go.
that stuff, like I lose it. And like at the office, that's what we all freak out about. Like there was I remember we had a first gen Prius come in with like 40,000 miles on it, I think.
Yes.
And
Doesn't make
no one
sense.
preserved those, and none of them have low mileage. They're all 250,000 mile cars now. They're on their 8th owner, and they're just like rusty, falling apart.
11th
Like
cat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
right. But to see one in really great shape, like that stuff just fascinates me because that is definitely a perfect like preserved one of those is way more rare than like an F40. It's just there just can't be that many of them.
Yeah, I think
It's
I
like,
saw like the last Radwood that was up here, the Radwood NorCal I went to. There was a guy with it was like a 40,000 mile 87 Ford Tempo, like 2.3 liter
Wow.
with a
Yeah.
manual, like 2-door, and it was like, what in the world? Like it's just, and it was perfect. Had the window sticker still. It was just like, I
Aw.
just, yeah, I'm
That
right there
was
with you.
somebody, and it's usually, I love the stories of, oh, it's a little old lady that had this and drove it to get her hair done on, it's like,
Mhm.
and when that story is true and like, and you have a car that's just preserved like that, it's just so cool and so
Yeah.
special. And it's a time capsule. It really is.
It is. Well, I think we should celebrate this victory with a brief. I suppose we never actually found out. Like, I know if somebody like does cocaine, it would be a bump. I don't know what it is for PCP though. Like, is it a? I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah,
This is one of those situations where it's good that we don't know, I think.
I suppose.
Ignorance
Although
is
it would be
bliss.
really funny if like I don't know what it is, and Kennan's like, oh, it's this. Like he completely knows, like all
Oh,
about
yeah.
like angel dust.
You guys party.
So we're definitely
man.
with PCP, which is our project car progress. Kennan, it sounds like. How about you? Like, it's your Ferrari sounds like it's in a perpetual state of projectness.
That is.
Have you what progress have you most recently made, or are you in the process of making right now?
Well, it just came back from the shop today, actually. So
Ah.
the convertible top is a known weak point on that car. It's Ferrari's first powered convertible top, and it's kind of like this weird, like half-powered thing where the motors will lift it up and push it out. It has 2 sets of hydraulic rams, 2 to lift it up, and 2 more that push it out. So I guess it's 4 in total. But and then it gets like most of the way, but you have to like latch it and like put it
Pull it
in and
down
like
and-
finish the last little bit of it. And so mine was binding on one side. Like it had no problem going down. Going down was very easy, but going up, and it would go up most of the way. Like the hydraulics lifted it up, but then it just couldn't. It would just like it would get stuck on the passenger side. And my mechanic was like not thrilled to have to deal with this issue, but he discovered what it was over the weekend and lost his mind. There are a series of brass washers in there that over
Okay.
time just sort of wear out and will bind, and that's what it was. but in order to get to that, he had to drill out the rivet that held it in and like do a bunch of work to get it to fit properly to replace it. But once he did, and then everything was able to pivot correctly in that one spot, up and down, no problem, run fast too. Like it, so they're finicky, but he was like thrilled to figure that out, and it was beyond my level of. I don't want to take a drill to my Ferrari. Like,
Sure.
they're pretty rudimentary cars, honestly. Like that car is very easy to work on. Like I've changed oil on them before. Like it's really easy, and it's cool to like look at stuff. It's like you'd think it's this crazy engineering, but it's like it's really not. So it's a fun car to work on as a project car, I guess. But admittedly, it was nice to have it like come home and I didn't have to do it. And he was like ecstatic to have figured it out. He was like texting me over the weekend. I was like, dude, I can't believe this. This is so
That's
great.
awesome.
Love
So
it.
yeah. But what about you guys? What are the current statuses of your projects?
Oh boy. Chadwick, why don't you go first?
Well, the 300ZX twin turbos finished up, so no more fun project on that. The Mini Cooper S, I got to touch up a rear bumper, kind of get that going. But what I've been recently working on is an ATV, and I've never ever worked on a four-wheeler before. So it has no start. It has a crank no start condition. It's original 2003 Honda TRX 500 Rubicon, which is a really cool, powerful four-wheeler.
Yeah.
But just cranks forever, won't start. So replaced the entire fuel tank. I took the carburetor out, broke down the carburetor, went through, cleaned everything. Still didn't fix the issue. The tank was like it was full of gunk. Like just it was so nasty. It has a petcock kind of fuel delivery thing, kind of like a sending unit, and it was rotted with like holes in it. So that wasn't working. So that needed to go. And I put the carburetor back together. Still wasn't enough. So I had to buy a new carburetor. Cleaned everything out, did an oil change, all that. Runs like a dream now. So
Awesome.
Super cool. It's like working on a mini old muscle car, because ATVs and motorcycles kind of keep that old carburetor technology going. So it's super fun. And I really don't play with a lot of carb stuff. So it was super cool to like get my hands dirty and turn it around. So that's what I've been working on. We work on everything here at the shop.
That's
right.
so fun. Carburetor. I'd love to. I need to spend some time working more with carburetors, because I mean, all the cars I've worked on, it's fuel injection and it's a lot easier, and diagnosis is different. But carbs are, such a fine art, and just
Sure.
like tuning them correctly, like listening to them, and like it really is like something you have to play with. The only things I've had experience with are like lawnmowers, being from Ohio again. Like I played with. Playing a lot with those carbs and stuff like that, so I'd love to do more of it. That's really cool. That sounds like a fun project, fun little project.
It's like a dark art, like you said, like fine tuning, but like on a base level, they're super simple, because it's just like the air and fuel come together and just go right in, and you tighten that screw, you would make an adjustment there, and it's kind of cool.
Very cool. Fabulous.
How about you, Frank? What do you
got?
924 turbo update back there?
I see. Sort of. Not a major one. So it is no longer on jack stand. So I had the front end up because I was underneath it to poke around the wastegate, which I haven't fished it out quite yet. I needed to make some room in the garage because my wife, long story short, she had to empty. She's a teacher. She had to empty her classroom. She's getting a new classroom at her new school next year, and so she has an entire kindergarten classroom of nonsense that is now in my garage, which is fine. It is what it is. But I had to like move stuff around. That includes getting the 924 moved a little bit. So I put it back on the ground, but I was like, well, before I do that, let me at least change the freaking oil, because it's overdue for it. It's just by age. And so I did the ever popular draining the oil, and I've got one of the catch basins where it's like the cap. It's not just an open bin. It's got the cap. You undo the cap. And it's got so you can seal it all up, take it to your oil.
I think I know where this story's going, guys.
Yeah.
Sort of. So what happened was, I made the rookie mistake. One of many rookie mistakes, but so I had it all, like everything was go. I opened it, and so the nut on that thing is I think it's a 19 millimeter on the oil pan, so it's pretty big, and it's kind of the whole width of the outlet. So when when you pull the drain plug, I mean, it's going like about 3 times your typical like regular ass car. It's just like it dumps like the whole oil pan in like 20 seconds.
Did you loosen the oil cap first too to be extra crazy?
I pulled the filter first. So effectively the same deal. So filter out, and so it just went whole hog, and so, which is fine. Like I had the catch base in there, but I forgot it's got the little vent.
Yep.
And I forgot to do the vent,
Filled
so
up
it just
quick.
like it went, yeah, it filled up quick because it was coming out so fast, and it was like glugging, and so I was like panicking to try and like reach because it was of course on the opposite side,
Yeah.
and it's just like, do I put my arm through the waterfall to like undo it? So I reached around. Long story short, it takes 6 quarts or 5.8, and so I think about 2.8 ended on the garage floor under the car, which is just annoying. It's just like, man, like I don't know. It's like the most. I don't hate doing oil changes because a lot of if it's just easy, it's like, hey, I did a thing.
Mhm.
But when it goes sideways like that, and you're like, now you've got this mess, and it's just like it would have. I don't know. So it's got fresh oil in it now, and a good proper.
Nice.
Yeah, and that's done. But now I burned a whole bunch of dead like oily rags, and I got like some old crappy towel from in the house I was gonna throw out and mopped stuff up, and yeah, it's just a bucket of yuck now. And that's it. Like a failed oil change has been my only progress. It's just not ideal. But
Kind
hey,
of progress.
Sorry, it happens. I once had a friend who did an oil change on his M5, and we were all hanging out, and it was kind of late at night, and he forgot to put the drain plug back in, so he started putting new oil in it, and he was like,
coming out the other end.
It's like I hear something, and he looked down, and it was just all over the floor. That's a really troublesome moment, but it happens. Like, yeah, but I agree. When small projects, even just something routine like changing an oil, multiplies into this thing where it just adds these headaches. It's just like, oh my god, this is such a frustration. But then you have the satisfaction, like Chadwick did, of like getting a simple thing to run again. It's so satisfying.
Yeah.
Like I'm admittedly, it's like I'm so busy with cars and bids these days. Like I don't have as much time to get my hands dirty working with cars as I used to, because I really love working on cars. I love like just getting in there and like really taking my time, like doing things methodically, but then seeing how things are put together. You really get to learn like a car, like from an engineering perspective of why something works a certain way, or like what things a manufacturer overlooked, or like the engineers didn't think about, but they should have talked to the mechanics before they designed something a certain way.
Service engineering gone awry.
Yeah, there's plenty of that, especially in the European car world. But yeah, I feel your pain though, Frank. That is a frustrating thing.
I mean, whatever. If it's not like I stripped out the oil pan threads or anything. It's like,
oh god,
truly catastrophic. It's just like
broke a spark plug
off. Like that was dumb. You over torque a spark plug, and you're like, why is it just spinning? And you're like,
righty
I don't want to Healy coil ahead. And so
no, but that's totally it though. It's like once you start working on your own stuff, no matter how like trivial the maintenance is, you get that real different level of investment in the project at that point, right? Like then you know your car, you're personally making it healthy again. So
yeah, absolutely. And
true.
then when you do it, it's done properly. That's the other thing too. Like
mostly.
Until sometimes
mistakes,
you're like,
you made them, but
time to turn this over and see what happens.
Timing belt.
Yeah. Timing is scary. Timing is very scary. But it's all about learning, and like you build up to stuff. You start out with small things like oil changes, and then you eventually do get to points where you're like, building engines and stuff like that. That was my one friend. My one friend who has runs a YouTube channel and a shop called E39 Source, and like that's where we started out like that. We bought these BMWs when we were young. We didn't have the money to have them worked on, so we had to do it ourselves. And there were like no videos about that at that time. Like it was all on forum stuff. So we just started making the videos about how to work on these cars. And it started out with simple stuff like that: oil changes, just replacing like plastic trim, whatever.
Window regulators,
Right. Well, yeah, of course. And now it's to the point where he's, he strips down an engine and will do timing chain guides and all the like the hard stuff with those engines. And it's just like it's satisfying. It's just like so satisfying. And same thing with other YouTube channels, M539 Restorations. I don't know if you guys have ever watched him. Very BMW specific, but he's done like same thing. He started out just working on this driveway, and now he builds motors. Like it's really cool.
Awesome.
At the end of the day, they're all, as my friend Ryan says, it's all bolts. Like it's all, the concepts are the same. Like it just like righty tighty, lefty loosey, X number of pounds of torque or whatever. It's just like you just build up to that, and that's what's so satisfying. And then when it does work, you did it yourself, and that is
when
a good feeling.
when you troubleshoot something, and you're like, oh my god, I figured it out, and it actually fixed it. That's just like this high.
Yeah, absolutely, it is.
Yeah,
It's the
Similar
best.
to the high, that is the PCP high. Truthfully,
it
though,
really
right?
is. Yeah, exactly. I did that, and then I just I jumped off a 4-story building. It was very and just and tried to flip a car like that, as one does. And so very similar high to PCP.
That's our productive version of the same high. Yeah.
Right.
Yes, exactly. Well, I think on you know what? Maybe on that note, should we end it on the talking about being high on PCP?
High on cars. That'll be the title for this one. Yeah,
exactly.
I like it.
High on cars. Welcome to High on Cars.
Or no, if it were cheesy, they'd be high octane, something like that.
Exactly.
Some awful. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Then we actually just talk about huffing like fuels.
Yeah.
Oh
exactly.
man, you ever huff some 110 low lead, and it's just like
exactly. You
rating inhalants.
Become a connoisseur. Ah, yes, 93 octane. How I miss it.
Exactly. Yes. Well, perfect. Well, we'll tell you what. People know where to find us because they're listening. So we're another pointless automotive podcast specifically. How about you, Kennan? Where if people want to see what you are up to, what's the proper way for people to do that and kind of follow along with what you've got craculating?
Yes, absolutely. Well, generally all my work is on cars and bids, of course. So if you're looking for a new project car, that's a great place to go. Or you're looking to move your car onto somebody else, that's a great place to go as well. I'm also on Instagram at 355 SPDR is the name of my Instagram handle. Really sticking with that theme, like I said, since I was a kid. And even once it's gone, I will stick with that theme too.
There you go.
But yeah, that's where everybody can find me. And then of course, keeping an eye on YouTube, as I will be in many places out on the internet, doing cool car stuff. I'm everywhere.
Fantastic.
Nice.
How about you, Chadwick?
Who, me?
Yeah, you.
Yeah, Auto Obsessive Garage on YouTube, rescues, restorations, some reviews from time to time. Also on Instagram. And where can the good people follow you, Frank?
Yeah, OnlyFans and mostly Instagram and a splash of YouTube, and that's the Photographer's Garage, which do that if you want. But first off, thanks for listening, Kennan. Thanks for talking shop and hanging out.
Yeah, thanks a ton, man.
And being chill and such.
Thank you guys. It was a true pleasure. I've watched your show before, and it is not pointless. I love listening to you guys. So
you
thank
bite
you
your
so
tongue,
much.
sir. No.
Yeah, we've been debunked.
Exactly. No, we appreciate you coming on and burning some time with us. I know you're a busy gentleman, and so we appreciate it. And that's it. Thanks, guys.
Yeah,
thanks, Kennan.
Care, guys.
Awesome.
Thanks, Chadwick. I like your button up.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I like you. Right. I like your face.
Oh, how sweet.
All right. Well, on that note, see you later.
Peace.
Bye, guys.
Bye.